Right now I've got Claude Code coding me up multiple different features for a Mac application that I have created. And the question really is, how do I keep track of what the AI is actually building? So in order to understand how I do this, I need to take you through my entire build process. Now I'll keep this video short and simple. And I'm going to show you how to make sure that you always are building what you actually want the AI to build rather than the AI taking control over you. So I actually start off by mocking up some basic UI design. This is just a web application that I've built inside Codex. You don't have to use Codex, you could use whatever you want, but I just mock it up inside Codex. So I have the basic buttons that I want to have, and I have a mental model of how I want the app to actually look. And this is what some people would call essentially a UI wireframe. This then allows me to imagine what happens when I click a button. So for example, when I click search, what do I see? When I actually search for something, what do I see then? And then for file browser, what happens when I click on file browser? What do I see? And as I'm describing how each of these features work, for example, when I click on settings, what do I see? I am just figuring out what the user sees when they click on the buttons. That's all I do when I start off with. And then what I do is I come into my CodeSpring account, go to codespring.app, and you can create your own account to follow along with this. I go ahead and I store all of my core features here. So you can see I've got settings, for example, I've got file browser, I've got indexing, and I just write a small description of how these work. Now, Codex actually integrates with any AI agent. So it integrates with Claude Code, it integrates with Cursor, it integrates with Codex through CLI or even MCP if you want to. So what is really cool about this is I'm talking inside Codex, and what you'll notice with AI is when you build a feature, it adds loads of features that you don't actually want. So at this stage, all I'm doing is removing context. I'm removing features that I don't need. And when I'm pretty happy and I've got a good understanding of how I want the user journey to work and what I want them to be able to see when I click certain buttons, I just say to Codex, can you store that as a core feature inside CodeSpring? And that's what it does. It will store it inside here. And then what I can do is I can actually add notes to each individual feature. So I can say, okay, how is what happens when I click on search? What do I see? Well, I'm going to have like a search result view, for example. So if we actually come into here and we search for search, we've actually got a whole load of information on how we actually want search to work. So we have the result view here. And if we come into here, this is the result view. And then when I'm like, okay, I'm pretty happy with how I want that to look, I can actually go ahead and upload a mood board image. So I'm just keeping track and essentially using this as a note taker to store all the information of how I want something to work, because then I can come back to it later. Because as you can see, when you're building, it can get really complicated very, very quickly on how everything actually works. So I'm just storing all the context that I need. And if I want to, I can add notes on how individual features work. Now we've got plenty of other videos on this channel if you want more context on how this app works. But then it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, now I want to start building this app. And in order to start building this app, I always want to build inside Claude Code. I've been using Fable 5 for this. At the moment, I'm using Opus because I've run out of Fable 5 usage. But the way that I do it now is I can just say, okay, Claude Code, I get it connected via CLI so it can now read the plan. So the path goes Codex. I chat back and forth, mock up a UI. I then store the plans inside here. And then once I'm ready, I then convert them into tasks that need to be completed. So you can see here I've got task 0.1.1, 0.1.2, 0.1.3, for example. We've got some other ones. We can also scroll down, 0.2.10, all the way up to 0.8.1, for example. Right? We've got loads of different tasks that need to be completed. And when we get up to 1.0, which is here, this would be the final task. This is the final launch checklist of everything that I need to do. And all I do is I say to Codex, once I've got my entire plan done and I've chatted through how do I want each feature to look, I then say to Codex, look, now we've got a good understanding of how we want this whole app to go together, and I've told you what the exact features are. Can you go ahead and read all of the context that I've stored inside CodeSpring for all of the other features, and can you go ahead and turn it into a Kanban tasks for me to build, and it will go ahead and create the tasks. And when you first start, all of these will be in the to-do list. And then what I do is I come into Claude Code and I just say /goal, and I just say very, very simply, check inside CodeSpring, and I want you to complete tasks 0.1.0 all the way up to 0.5.0. If you need any additional information on how they all work, you can go ahead and look inside the mind map, and you can look at the feature, because all of the features have notes taken. Some of them have more context in them, and in fact, if you really wanted to get very nerdy, you could actually come into CodeSpring and you could generate product requirement docs for these features. So I could say, actually, I'm going to go ahead and generate a front-end product requirement doc for how to build this feature. I've taken all the notes on how I want this feature to work. I've uploaded an image of how I want this feature to work. I have all of the information on how the other features work around it, and I have the general information for the it would help if I could spell, for the settings feature as well. So I can then go ahead and I can add all the information in here, and I can generate product requirement docs. So now, when I come into Claude Code, and I say build me this feature, and then when I set it off on that task, what Claude Code is going to do is work its way through the goals. It's going to pull in all the context and information that it needs, and then it's going to start ticking off these tasks. So for example, once this task here has been completed, it'll go ahead and move it into done. So let me give you an example here. If I come into Claude Code, I'm going to say, can you just check inside CodeSpring? We've got some various other tasks that need completed, like 0.7.2. I want you to spin up a subagent using let's spin up a subagent using Codex extra high, GPT 5.5, and we're going to work on task 0.7.2. I haven't got all the information on how updates should work inside a Mac app, but if we actually come into the mind map inside CodeSpring, there's some information stored on how updates should actually work. So can you go ahead and read all the information in there, get some additional context that you need, spawn in a subagent and move the task into in progress so it's working on it, and obviously tick it up, just work your way through that plan, and once it's done, obviously move it into completed. And then I'm just going to send that message through. Now, the wonderful thing about doing all of this is I don't need to have to re-explain everything all the time. In a second, what you'll see here is we'll come back into the Kanban, and it's going to move this from from to do to in progress. At the moment, it's just going to go ahead and probably figure out how to do it. So we'll pause this. I'll come back once it starts launching the next agent. Now, the wonderful thing about this is once I have a plan that I know that I need to build, it doesn't matter if I want to move between using Claude Code, or maybe I stop using Claude Code because Codex brings out a better model and I want to use Codex to build, and I want to use subagents within inside Codex. My plan is separate, which means I can use it with whatever I want. So it means that you can have a lot of dynamic ability in how you're building and which tools that you're building, and you can move your plan between each of them. Okay, so it looks like it's getting ready to get started building. So if we refresh this now, we come into the Kanban, you can see we've now got task 0.72 is currently in progress, and task 0.8.6 is also in progress. So as you start to test features, you can move them in and out of in progress, so that way you know what needs to be worked on and what doesn't need to be worked on. So if something doesn't work and it says it's been completed, you just move it back to in progress, you then continue working on it, and then you can come back to it later on. So it's so much easier to see what is the AI actually working on at any one time. Okay, so it's now sent off another subagent to fix it. You can see down here, fix image, drag and drop. That agent is now on its way, and it's moving 0.6.14 back to in progress. So if we refresh inside CodeSpring, we can see inside here 0.6.14 has been updated, and then what it's going to do is it's going to add more information into the canvas for us, so we never lose any information. So we know when we're working on specific features, we can always be updating it, and that's very, very important, because you're never going to have AI build perfectly the first try. This is a very good example of when something goes wrong, you can focus and hone in on a specific feature on exactly how to fix it. So we can very easily keep track of what's not working and what is working. We can see which agents are working on what, and that way we have a lot more ability to control the agent and make sure it's not building us the incorrect features. When something isn't working and we want to update it, we have a place to actually store that information. So if we ever come back to this in the future and we want to add more information to this, or we want to adjust this feature, we have all the context and information stored inside our CodeSpring plan. So if you want to get set up with CodeSpring, all you need to do is, I'll leave the link down below in the description. If you go to codespring.app, you can click on this, start building with AI, create your account. We have got 3 different payment plans for you. I recommend getting set up with the Pro plan. It's just £49 a month. You get 10,000 credits per month. You get access to all of the features that I've shared in this today. The only thing you don't get is the team workspace. So there's loads of other cool things you can do. You can actually come into CodeSpring and you can actually design and talk to the the agent that we have in here to build up a mind map from scratch. If you haven't got an idea, we've got competitor research. You can design mind maps and you can share it with anybody. So you can share it with somebody else in your team. You can send it to somebody else who has a CodeSpring account so that they can get set up. There's loads of cool stuff that you can do. You can go ahead and integrate and pull in different documentation from all over the place. If you have an existing project, you can easily get it mapped out inside here. So if there's a project you're currently working on and you want to pick it up inside CodeSpring, you can either come into the agent and import it directly from GitHub, or you can do what I would probably recommend is open it up inside Claude Code, connect it directly with the agent, and then you can just tell Claude Code to visualize it for you inside CodeSpring, and then you can continue to make adjustments to your plans inside CodeSpring. So yeah, if you want to grab a subscription for that, the link is down below in the description. And everybody who has an account that gets set up, you can also book in a call with me, and I will then walk you through on how to get everything set up as well.